Hello and welcome to the New World Review. I'm Grand Line Waifu, and today it is the day. My goodness, it's been quite the journey, hasn't it? More than a year and many mispronounced and forgotten names to get us to the point where I can say we're going to take a look at the last existing episodes of Hunter x Hunter, episodes 147 and 148, and see if absolutely everything or absolutely anything has been resolved. Let's get into it. Episode 147, and I really like the cyclical nature of some of Togashi's decisions. If anything, I think I'm less interested in whether everything is resolved, and I will assume by now that Togashi is afraid of endings, because if you end things, there's no chance of it coming back. If you resolve everything related to Gon in this episode was sort of a cleanup. For the first time, the boys are choosing to take time away from each other. It's interesting that earlier in the arc, Killua said that things would change once he saved Gon, because I don't know if this is what he meant, and I don't know if this is what he expected to happen. The episode was very much about apologies, how to apologize, how to atone. Koala Friend felt that he needed to atone for the death of the red-haired woman who occupied that body before Kite. We haven't seen Koala Boy in so long, I did wonder what his deal was, but I don't know if I ever expected this to be resolved. Togashi has this really interesting way of bringing back characters I sort of forgot to care about and use them not to move the story along, but to highlight another aspect of it and make a point. I don't care about the koala's plight at all, because I don't need to. I'd argue I'm not supposed to. What I am supposed to do is consider Kite's response to the story, which is somewhat in opposition to what Jing told Gon to do when apologizing. The interesting thing with Kite's response to the koala is that Kite is the one who decided what atonement the koala would give. The koala apologized, or confessed, I suppose, and did that for his own reasons. But Kite then took it way over the top by saying that you're going to live forever and apologize forever. In their own way, Kite became the avenging angel. Atonement is very different to apology, and atonement is very different to behavior change. The koala could apologize every day, could do what Kite says every day of his life, then still come back because the change was not soul deep. Kite's suggestion that the koala must now atone is even more odd to me, given the koala felt he was killing her to free her from a cycle he doesn't know exists. In a strange sort of way, Kite's punishing the koala for mercy, then follows up by denying the koala that same mercy. And I guess the value system is just very strange to me, especially when we follow it up with Gon and Kite's conversation. We see such a powerful difference between the two. Gon apologizes, and it seems to be only because Kite themselves also needs to atone for something, putting Gon into a situation he wasn't ready for. And that allows for that distinct difference in behavior. How Kite has become the judge and jury, I'm not sure, but I suppose if you have a lot of people coming to you to apologize for not doing more, you get that privilege, I guess. Meanwhile, I love that Killua didn't let Gon drop his apology. He mocked him soundly for it first. Jokes are interesting things because when we joke, there's a kernel of belief at the center of it, a kernel that we have to accept as part of it for it to be funny. The kernel at the center of Killua's joke with Gon is that he was left hurt, and Gon has to accept and live with that in order to laugh or move past it. That does indicate they can move past it and be friends, and I really like that, and it's really important because by the time we get to this penultimate episode, Killua's finally figured out what he wants to do. Both of these kids have had a very specific goal to their journeys. Gon wanted to find his father, while Killua wanted to figure out what he wants to do with his time, what he wants to do with his life. At many points throughout the series, Killua has very specifically been following Gon because he didn't know what else to be doing with his time. Now he has Alaka and something to take care of. He's found his purpose. Or at least until Alaka loans him to Gon, because that was an amazing moment. Alaka setting them up for a date. Even Alaka sees the situation for what it is. Killua can't follow Gon like a puppy anymore because he knows what he needs and what he wants isn't purely Gon related anymore. And that's some beautiful growth, you know? And Gon managed to find his dad. And this is what I meant about the cyclical nature of things. Episode 1, we were in a tree with Gon. Here at the end, we're in a tree with him and his dad. Gon was always on an adventure to find his dad, but more than that, he was on a journey to understand why his dad enjoyed hunting. Having accidentally stumbled across his dad while lying in a mummified state, has he learned that? I'm hoping that's one of the answered questions, so let's take a look at the final episode. So, the final episode of Hunter x Hunter. If there is any more to this show, I don't think it will fit as well as what we got. I mean, all the flashbacks and the climbing and the wonder of the size of the tree truly did make for a nice jumping off point, as it were. And I really love what Jing had to say to Gon about why he left. He had a reason, a strong reason. Not only did he have a reason, but he had learning to pass on. Experiences he's had have been paralleled to Gon's surprisingly closely, but I don't think Gon could have understood them or truly come to terms with the meanings of them without Jing's wrapping up of those experiences. It continues that cyclical nature of things, knowing that Jing had to learn how to appreciate the happiness of those around him. There are distinct differences between Jing and Gon, and I think one of them is the interaction with the world. Jing left because he was curious, as did Gon, but where one was curious about what he hadn't seen, the other was curious about what he hadn't seen. Jing left because he wanted to know what was out there. Gon left because he wanted to know what Jing wanted. Now that he knows what Jing wants and how his father relates to the world, I imagine he can understand where he wants to go from here. But really, if you look at the conversation they had, Gon is now in the same position Killua was in when he decided to follow Gon. Killua went with Gon because he didn't know what he wanted. Gon now gets to spend some time figuring out what that is. The trope of the real treasure being the friends we find along the way is a nice way to end a series based around a character I've repeatedly questioned as not being able to empathize with others. There's something magical about the entire journey existing in order for him to learn how to empathize in just enough time for him to meet his dad, who seems to be stacked so full of empathy that his original goal was superseded in happiness by the happiness on others' faces. I also loved that Jing's game was a metaverse version of what he knew his world was, a smaller subset of a broader world. I'm entertained by the way that was represented artistically, and there were so many odd perspectives in that one image of the world, the big world, the extra world outside the world. I'm not sure what to believe other than that is Jing's internal representation of what the world might look like, and I almost understand now why the Hunter exam exists. We got there. There are people out there who understand that the world is bigger and broader and more dangerous than anyone could possibly realize, but it takes those 4 elements to be able to take them on, especially since going into the world could result in someone or something following you back if you return. Which leads me to wonder whether the Queen Ant floated in from outside the humanish world, or if she was tempted in. She suggested at one point that maybe she had some human in her, and if she came from another world, it would make sense that humans in fact created the issue they then had to resolve, right? Because that is what humans do. Monsters. Those 4 aspects really resonated with me. Authorization means there's a group that know about it. Means says there's a correct way to do it. Qualification and the fact that he doesn't have it suggests that even Jing has a long way to go to be able to survive that broader world. And a contract? That suggests people might want it explored. Jing knows something about all of them. He's worked too hard not to know anything about any of them, but he doesn't tell Gon because that's part of the game. Ultimately, the sharing of stories between them shows that Gon has been accepted by his father. So Jing can only say that his son found him despite his best wishes and despite the fact that he kind of accidentally stumbled across him. That doesn't matter. Good job. As they laughed, I did kind of think of that point and thought, it'd be a really dick move if he went ha 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 zoom and disappeared again, because being found is his way of showing appreciation for another hunter. The outro of the final episode made it though, right? It made the entire episode. Seeing everyone becoming who they were supposed to become, having those couple of resolutions, it was enough. I wish Milky Moo Moo's hawk had shown up, but otherwise I really enjoyed what we got. Kurapika and his eye collection was a clear favorite for me. I'm somewhat surprised and sad we didn't get a final shot of Hisky, but maybe that's to be expected. I'd have liked to know where he ended up, but unsatisfied is probably the fact of the matter, isn't it, really? Leorio in what we assume is a consulting doctor's office, or at least rich, which is exactly what he wanted, and he deserves it. Ultimately, the only important character that died in the entire series being Netero, other than the ants. The Ant King and his queen, which was a beautiful thing for us to see, just saying. But beyond those 2 dying, the only important character that died in the series was Netero, and that was poignant and pointed, and I really love that someone with such a zest for life gave his up to make sure the rest of them could continue to bumble their way through. Between the first arc where he spent his time playing with the boys to learn their potential, to the point where we saw his gratitude for existence, to his willingness to give himself over to the world with that gratitude, there have been a lot of really interesting messages that came from the series. The idea that there's nothing to distinguish human from monster, and that even if we think we know, we really don't. The idea that sometimes the best revenge is is revenge we refuse to take. The idea that there's no point in being the best if there is no one at the top for you to play with. The idea that all the power in the world won't win you the game. The idea that the pleasure we see on the faces of others can be its own reward. And the idea that maybe sometimes the detours are what make the journey worth taking. This series was one hell of a detour for me, and one that overall I quite enjoyed. So all I can say is enjoy the little detours to the fullest, even if they're 148 episodes long. Stay hydrated, enjoy some fresh air, and maybe I'll see you next time.